Hey everybody, welcome back outside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. It is clearly Wednesday morning. A happy hump day to all of you from the Podcast Daily. That is Bill Landis, Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. We had Christmas in May, and that is Ohio State Assistant Coach Media Day. Bill, what did you learn?
I feel like I learned a lot. I'd like to read to you from the book of me.
The book of William.
This is a quote from James Knowles.
Professor Knowles.
He's the defensive coordinator of Ohio State, referencing one CJ Hicks. Sometime this season, we're going to see him be unleashed.
Well, that won't be rewritten and rehashed a bunch over the next 4 months, will it?
It certainly will.
That feels suspiciously like last season's Sonny Styles is our secret weapon quote that was deployed but then never came to fruition.
Yeah.
I think what was interesting is that Jim Knowles acknowledging essentially that people are clamoring for the young five-star players to play, and his response to that was essentially what, Bill?
Pump the brakes. We know what we're doing. Coaches want to give players like CJ Hicks like a little bit of runway to learn how to play college football before they actually put them on the field. I would agree with anyone who says freshmen play other places sometimes, and that is true. But I think given the situation at linebacker last year, they were pretty comfortable allowing CJ to kind of marinate in the system a little bit. He probably should have played more. Jim Knowles has asked again. I asked him in spring ball, do you wish you would have played CJ more? He didn't really answer it then. He didn't really answer it today.
He did answer it today.
And he said, no. So, I don't know. But I think we have reached a point now where they've seen enough from CJ, and though Jim Knowles has heard the noise, he's not influenced by it. It's more about what he's seen from CJ on the field. They want to find things for him to do this year. And it's not like he's going to play instead of Steel Chambers, but he brought up the jack position again. He brought up some packages for CJ. He brought up definitely playing him in the second half of games to get out of hand. So, you're going to see him. What does that look like? I don't know. Was the quote that he said today going to get used against him 6 months from now? Probably. But it was still nice to hear that they have him in mind to do some stuff.
I mean, used against him?
Yeah, when it doesn't happen. Last year when Sonny Styles wasn't really the secret weapon.
But define the secret weapon. I'll kind of take
secret weapon is a weapon that people don't know you have, and then you use it with great success.
But they did. You have to figure out how. Yeah, but okay. They didn't use it every single game. For a freshman, I'm just going to be the devil's advocate here, or the coaching advocate, in that I don't think any of us would have really expected that kind of role for Sonny Styles in the games that he played it. Yes, secret weapon is a little bit of hyperbole. The way that Jim Knowles described CJ Hicks today probably will fit into that as well. And it's going to be a headline probably on 15 different places by the time you're watching this and listening to this podcast. It's going to come up a lot. And I think Jim Knowles kind of enjoys that part. You also don't say it if you don't think that they can contribute. And Sonny Styles did do that as a true freshman. Maybe there are people, and maybe the three of us,
senior playing as
that thought that could have been more based on the way that he talked about it. I don't think that it definitely didn't exceed my expectations. Just that he was out there against Wisconsin was pretty impressive to me. But that's already a wild tangent from the start. But when Jim Knowles speaks, it's going to get a lot of attention.
Yeah. He's candid, which I appreciate.
Yeah, he says a lot of things, and he means most of them, I think. I don't think Jim Knowles is at the point yet where he's offering a bunch of fluff or trying to be political. I thought it was interesting to hear him acknowledge that perhaps he didn't know what to do with all the talent that he had at Ohio State after coming from places that had less of it, and that maybe that influenced his thinking a little bit. That was somewhat refreshing. That was something I posited a few times last year. If you come from a place where you only have 5 dudes that you think are dudes, you come here and you got 20, all of a sudden it becomes a lot harder to know how to make them all fit together. And so I thought it was good to hear him acknowledge that and say he came right out and said, yeah, I actually think that's true, which I don't think he would have said a year ago. I don't know.
You're going to learn every year in the profession, right? And if that's not a situation that he's been in before with 20 guys who could play at a high level, that's going to require an adjustment. I think there's a good reason to buy stonks in that defensive staff, not just the players going into year 2, but the familiarity for all of them working together, the understanding of the personnel, being in the building all this time. I think that they were already improved, whether there's frustration, understandably for some folks, it didn't win the rivalry game and came up short in the fourth quarter against Georgia. Those things definitely happened. The improvement did as well over the course of the season. So if you can then take that one step further in year 2, I think there's a lot of reason to be excited by that. And I think that the defensive staff that was talking in here on Tuesday feels that, how much more room for growth there is in a lot of ways.
Gesundheit.
Sorry.
I didn't know if you had more to add or if that was where it was going.
We'll edit that.
But no, we won't. I was talking.
I tried to hold it to the very end.
Good work.
It's spring. It's allergy season.
Yeah.
I think
a lot of pollen just flowing around here this morning.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of enthusiasm, I thought, from the defensive staff. That sort of dovetails off of what we saw in the spring. Like, we all saw with our eyes, we got to see a lot of practice. And that side of the ball, I think, looked confident maybe more than anything. I don't want to say, like, improved because, there's weird stuff happening on the offensive side of the ball, but certainly more confident, more in tune, I think, with what Jim Knowles is trying to do. And the thing that Jim Knowles said a couple different times is, like, his vision for this is based off what he calls and what the offense calls. Like, everyone, all 11 should know where the ball is going to go. And he used, like, Tommy Eichenberg was like the example of a guy who, like, got that right away. And that clearly showed up in the way that Tommy played last year. Not everyone got that right away. And he said he felt like they were like 70% of the way there last year, which frankly seems like fairly high to me, given it was the first year of a system. But if you think about the way the season broke down, like, yeah, 30% of the time, maybe they didn't quite know what was going to happen to them. And they're trying to close that gap. And will they get to 100%? I don't know. But if they can get to like even 80 or 90%, I think you're going to see a much better defense in the fall.
The unfortunate part of that is that 30% of the time, like 80% of that 30% happened against Michigan.
Yeah, it's against the best teams, which is like, yeah.
And that's part of, I guess, growing up in the big city here. You're going to be playing against teams that know how to counter what you're doing. And that's why matchups are so important. And that's why Perry Eliano, you asked him about, how do you play all these safeties? You have 7, 8 guys that can play significant minutes at safety for Ohio State. How do you decide who the guy is? And Perry Eliano said, it's all going to be matchup based. And I asked him if there was a couple guys that you're going to put out there no matter what. And he artfully dodged that, saying yes, absolutely.
He said yes, yeah.
And I said, will you tell me who those people are? And he said, I will not. So you're going to find that out really early in the season, but I think we all assume Lathan Ransom is one of those guys. Yeah, sure. And I don't think there's another, to be honest.
I think it's a guy.
I think it's Lathan Ransom who will be the fulcrum of the center room no matter what way it goes. He's going to be out there. And if it's Cam Martinez and Josh Proctor, or if it's Jihad Carter and Sonny Styles, or however you're going to work it out, I think we can assume that Lathan Ransom will be the center point of that back half of the defense and then move everyone else around.
When I went over there and tried to have the same conversation with Perry Eliano that I've had multiple times, it's similar to what you two are hinting at, just make it easier for me to understand. And he does, but he also doesn't go all the way to 100%. There's only so far down that road he's going to be willing to go. It was like, describe to me your thought process, because I talked to you about it in February, and now you're evaluating what happened in March and April later. You said you didn't think you would have to experiment a lot, and there was a good reason for that. It was like, these guys have to know their positions. And so he didn't want to do that to a great extent. Moving around Cameron Martinez was a big part of the reason we think that he's not found his footing to this point as he learns defense or learns a specific position. I don't think that it's necessarily done Lathan Ransom any favors to be jostled around in the secondary. That hasn't happened to the same extent as Josh Proctor, but he's somebody who needs to have that stability and understand his role as well. So they didn't move them around a lot in different positions. They didn't have them one day with the ones and the next day with the twos. And Perry Eliano and Jim Knowles are sort of approaching this from the belief that for them to all play their best football, they needed to just stay in one spot. If they have to adjust some in August, they will. And it comes to that nickel spot in particular. Jihad Carter missed the last 2 weeks or so with the knee injury. Eliano said that he's 100%. He's going through all the workouts already right now, so that part won't be slowing him down in August. But that was another part of this, another factor that kept it. Those were the 3 guys that we mentioned that started all spring, and that was essentially by design. And not necessarily that it has to stay that way in August, although it could.
It could. I remain skeptical that it will. And it's funny, I don't think there is a disconnect between Jim Knowles and Perry Eliano. I just think they sort of handle media differently, and Perry prefers to be vague, where Jim Knowles is pretty comfortable being more specific. I think there is more on the table for Sonny Styles. Jim Knowles said, like, we like that big nickel package. We like playing him down closer to the line of scrimmage, but that he was much better as a deep safety in the spring, which we didn't see a lot of, but it apparently happened, than they thought he would be. So, and he described it as like kind of a dual package for Sonny Styles at the moment, where they want to keep growing that and seeing what he can do in more traditional safety roles while still making sure that he is kind of locked in to that big nickel role. So the streamlined position that we talked about in the spring, I think could potentially be expanding a little bit.
And that's what I really wanted to get out of Eliano is a guy like Sonny Styles so athletically different that you have to find a way to put him out there.
Yeah.
And again, it was sort of avoided, but the more we move toward the season, you look at that schedule and even matchup-based preferences, even if that's what you're going off of, Sonny Styles and his athleticism sort of fits no matter who you're playing against. It's not like you're playing in the Big Ten where you have teams running 4 and 5 wide all the time right now. Like, you're going to play at Purdue, that might be a little bit different. But other than that, who else are you playing in the Big Ten that you're going to be super scared of what they
Rutgers.
offer at wide receiver? So I don't think, Maryland is not the same Maryland next year that they were this year. Penn State is one, I guess, where you have that sort of thought. But other than that, I don't think so.
I don't think so. Bill, you talked to Justin Fry on Tuesday.
Yeah, I was there for not the entirety of his media session, but 95% of it. He is another guy that does not get like hyper specific on things. So, but I feel like I got some answers. He sort of left it up in the air, like left side, right side for Josh Simmons. We'll see how it plays out. He did not like fully commit to Josh Fryer playing on the left side. He said basically we're going to take all our tackles and work them on the left side and the right side and see what sticks. But you could sense definitely a different level of comfort knowing that Josh Simmons is here now, that he is more than likely going to provide an answer for them at one of the tackle positions. I think settle things out a little bit. Mm-hmm. What that means for the rest of the line, I think remains to be seen. That the center competition is still up in the air. Justin Fry described it as a healthy competition with Jacob James kind of back into that fray now. So I think more than anything, there was a bit more confidence projected in what the group could be, but a lot of it is still guesswork because frankly, the group that he's working with now is a little different than it was in the spring with Jacob James healthy and Josh Simmons in the fold, and he can't get them on the field until August, so he has to kind of wait and see.
He was as artful as he could be to say that Joshua Simmons has not been guaranteed any starting role, but everyone knows that Joshua Simmons is coming here to be a starting tackle for Ohio State. I asked him, how do you then balance the attitude or the potential for a crisis of confidence in guys like Tegra Shabolins and Mahalski, who have already been a little bit shaky when it comes to just being assertive with their belief that they belong on the field. And he said, essentially, he hasn't seen that, and that those guys have embraced the arrival of Josh Simmons as a decision, as a reason to be more competitive. So that, I think, is the ideal response and the optimal response for Ohio State. But I did ask, does that mean you can move Tegra inside? And he said...
You asked a question I was dying to ask him that I didn't.
And he said, we could. He said Paris moved inside and played there his entire sophomore year. That's something that they certainly could do with Tegra if it's to the benefit of the offensive line and bringing the best 5 guys out there. So to me, that read as a, yes, that's what we're thinking about doing with Tegra Shabol.
Yeah, but it does open, I mean, that's a domino. Like, that would mean most likely that you think Matt Jones would be in that best 5 at center, and that brings unless you're just talking about him getting two reps.
I don't think it's as a starter.
Yeah, but no, you don't have to decide that right now. He can, if Tegra is not a starter, and he's most likely not going to be, I don't think there's any reason why you couldn't just get him reps at both guard and tackle so that he's still if his long-term future is on the edge, cool, like let him do that and work. I don't know that it's such a dramatic change to kick inside the guard that he couldn't do that on short notice, or he needs a ton of reps at the expense of a role. That's why there's so many reasons to talk to Justin Fry for 2 hours about offensive line play, because if he
Bill is fine with that.
I understand. I am too. It's really interesting, and this is the position group that I think has the most uncertainty to look at, even with adding Josh Simmons into the mix. But you move one, what does that mean for somebody else's reps at guard? You could feel reasonably confident about what you have with the 2 starters, and then Enoch Vamahi with that experience. Is that a necessity? I don't know.
I think Tegra, I think Tickle will start at guard in 2024. After Matt Jones leaves, we'll see what Donovan Jackson does. Justin Fry said, like, Enoch Vamahi had a really good spring. He said if they had to play, like, tomorrow and they had to find the best 5, that Enoch will probably be in that 5. I don't think that means that Enoch Vamahi is going to start in the fall, but I think that is a good indication that he did make some gains in the spring and is still making them. I did ask about, like, Matt Jones playing center and Donovan Jackson potentially playing guard, and Justin Fry kind of described those more as break glass in case of emergency kind of deals. And he said, like, we don't really want to break that glass. So I'm not anticipating any of that. I think you have your guards locked in with Donovan and Matt. You have this center competition, and Josh Simmons and Josh Fry are your tackles in some form or fashion, which is, I don't know, it's certainly more set than it felt at the outset of spring. So I think it's a good thing.
You know what I heard on Tuesday that I didn't anticipate?
Yesterday,
I heard Austin J. Ward ask about an incoming transfer long snapper.
I did.
And why it was necessary.
Did you get a good answer on that?
Yeah. Hey, it's been a while since we got to talk to these people, and I realized it never came up.
He's going to be their long snapper, right?
And the guy played all spring here.
He was here all spring. Like, Parker Fleming was available in February. I don't remember if anybody asked about it. I know that I didn't.
The name John Furlman was not said.
Yeah, I asked Bradley Robinson about him a week or so ago because I'm like, hey, this guy's playing in a position that's pretty important on special teams. Like, how was he? Like, what do you think about this? Because, you know, they lost Mason Arnold, who was pressed into that role after Bradley Robinson's injury. You know, we know what happened with some of the fakes and things like that. That's kind of an important position. We don't ever talk about that really, but I guess John Furlman had as good of a spring as you can have as a long snapper. I know that he's worked a lot with Brad Robinson.
And so did Max Lamonaco.
Yeah. And I was like,
is that a real person?
It is a real person. That's
I know it is.
So what Parker was like, well, we wanted him to come in and, you know, get into a competition. And I'm like, well, I'm struggling to think what that competition actually looks like. If that's your scholarship guy and you recruited him from Arizona State, like, it seems like you probably wanted him to come in and be the starter. And it was kind of like, well, yeah, that competition's not ongoing anymore. But
what do you guys?
There you go.
What do you think is the best name for, like, a cartoon detective, and why is it Max Lamonaco?
It shows that there's a playful side to him, but also the last name, like, tells you that it's like he's all business.
He's about business.
By the book.
Yeah.
You know he's wearing a trench coat. He probably has, like...
He's Inspector Gadget.
He's got, like, a comically sized 44 Magnum that he carries around.
Well, that's interesting, because I was picturing McGruff, the crime dog, in my mind.
But in human form.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Fred McGriff.
That's a different crime dog.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, yeah, I did ask about that. That tells you how badly I wanted to talk about football.
Well, I don't even think, like, the times that Ryan Day has talked about the transfer, because he's been asked several times, but hey, you guys added more transfers this offseason than you normally do. And when he runs through them, like, he doesn't mention the long snapper.
It's never come up. It's never come up once.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, maybe I should find out something about this guy.
It's good work by you.
You know what else? We talked to Corey Dennis on Tuesday, and he said he has not decided on the quarterback battle. It has not been decided. He said he does not have a timeline.
Did you offer him $10?
I did not, because that would be improper. I did, however, hear him. He was asked whether or not he has a timeline for when he wants that done. And the answer was no. So a lot of things are moving along in the direction we anticipated.
Thank goodness you got to the bottom of that.
We anticipated that to be the case. He said both of those guys have really emerged as leaders and filling in, you know, for CJ and stepping up and being the vocal leader of the team, vocal leaders. So nothing new there. I expect no news there until August, right? I mean,
did he say whether or not the South Dakota Slinger was here yet?
He is not here yet. He should be here. Actually, it might be now.
Right, got in on Wednesday morning.
No, I think I forgot that
he looks like Mark Pantone.
I forgot that it is May 31st, and I thought it was still like May 9th, because somehow the last 3 weeks has escaped me. I think,
are you okay?
I don't know if I've been secretly concussed, and I just didn't know it that happened. Something is askew in my brain, but somehow the last 3 weeks have not happened in my world. So
This did happen later than it typically does, so I get why you might be thrown off.
Yeah, so I thought maybe that Lincoln would be here like now. He should be here this week if he.
Yeah, some guys are. Larry Johnson said that like Katie McDonald gets here on Sunday.
Yeah, so everyone should be arriving.
Taiwan
I think June 3rd is like June 3rd or 4th is normally the latest that people get here anymore. But I did ask about Lincoln. Said, hey, how do you control a kid like that who's going to come in here super competitive, is going to do whatever he can, wants to be the starter, expects to be the starter, but realistically knows he's not going to be the starter? And Corey just said, we're just going to ask everyone to get to be their best and see what happens. And it's as generic an answer as you can get, but it's also the truth, I guess.
Yeah. Also, like, he's not making the decision.
Yes. Well, I didn't want to say that.
I mean, he's part of the process, but it's like, when are you going to make a decision? It's like when Ryan tells me you're the quarterback.
Yeah.
Brian Hartline was asked about Joe Philbin, as you would expect, and said what you'd think. Glad to get to work with the guy. He talked a lot about how, as a player at Ohio State, he worked with Daryl Hazelmore and he worked with Jim Tressel. And so he was essentially saying, when I was at Miami, even though Joe Philbin was the head coach, I didn't really work with the head coach, but now I
I think there was a little bit too much read into that and too many storylines
manufacturing a story
assigned to it. Like, it just doesn't, like, oh, it's his NFL head coach. How many NFL players and their head coaches are like best friends? Come bring this guy in.
How many guys play for Sean McVay? Because that's the only answer.
Oh, that's great. That's a good point. All right.
He feeds them chunky soup.
I get it. Did you learn anything else, Bill?
Like Larry Johnson feels really good about the depth on the defensive line with the addition of Taiwan Malone. Excited, I think, to get Taiwan Malone. Is it Taiwan?
Tommy, who hit your car?
I had a garbage can.
Oh. He deserved it.
You just can't stop hitting things.
Taiwan.
Taiwan Malone was more of a 4-eye, 5-tech, meaning lined up over the offensive tackle at Ole Miss. More of a 3-tech here, and Larry seems excited about what that can unlock for him.
Yep. There's a lot of stuff to learn, and a lot of it is just dancing around.
We're going to start processing it all. We're going to start, save it. We have content coming.
From the Book of Bill.
We got to talk football. We got to learn about football, and we're going to write about it at ohiostate.rivals.com, and we're going to talk about it here on the podcast. There's a lot more to get to. Maybe we'll just start doing more position episodes. Who knows? That's going to be a little thing called We'll See, as we try and figure out what to do with all this information we were able to acquire at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center on Tuesday. Thanks to Jerry Emig for setting all of that up. Thanks for Ryan Day for approving it. Thanks for having us in here. And thanks for spending part of your Wednesday with us on the Podcast Daily. For Bill and Berm, I am Austin. We will talk to you later.